Today, we're unpacking a literal centuries-long relay race of scientific discovery that ultimately gave us the fluorescent lamp. Every time you walk into a brightly lit office building or a sprawling factory, you're actually looking at the culmination of a scientific marathon that began long before electricity was even understood.
So let's dive right in. Who actually deserves the credit for this world-changing technology? It's super common to assume that a single genius, like a Thomas Edison type, just sat in a lab and had this brilliant eureka moment. But the true story of how we got light without heat is far more fascinating than that.
Instead of a lone genius, this was a massive relay race of innovation. We're going to cover 1. Centuries of glowing secrets. 2. Geissler's trapped lightning tubes. 3. Hewitt's efficient Erie light. 4. Germer's brilliant phosphoro breakthrough. 5. The 1930s commercial revolution. And finally, 6. A legacy of efficiency.
All right, part 1. Centuries of glowing secrets, from alchemists to physicists.
Our story actually kicks off with some mysterious, almost magical discoveries. Back in the early 1600s, there's this Italian shoemaker and alchemist named Vincenzo Cascarolo. He stumbled upon barium sulfide and realized something crazy. If he exposed it to strong sunlight, it mysteriously just kept emitting a bluish glow in the dark. Fast forward a bit to 1706, an English scientist, Francis Hauksbee, uses a vacuum pump and an electrostatic generator to create the first human-made electrical glow discharge. He literally captured lightning in a jar. By 1852, physicist George Gabriel Stokes had studied these glowing substances and officially coined the term fluorescence.
Moving on to part 2, Geissler's trapped lightning tubes, the vacuum breakthrough.
Now, the real game changer in this era was figuring out that you absolutely needed a high-quality vacuum to make electricity flow and create light. Enter Heinrich Geissler in the 1850s. He was a German glassblower and instrument maker who built this magnificent device. Using a mercury vacuum pump, he proved you could flow electricity right through a vacuum. When he filled these evacuated glass tubes with rarefied gases, like neon or argon, and hit them with a high voltage, they glowed with brilliant, colored light. This wasn't just a neat parlor trick either. These Geissler tubes literally gave birth to the science of spectroscopy, neon lighting, and, no joke, paved the way for discovering the electron itself.
Part 3. Hewitt's efficient Erie light, the mercury blueprint.
So, by 1901, the science baton passes to an independent American engineer who was looking for a deliberate commercial solution. Peter Cooper Hewitt proved that gas discharge was highly efficient. He made a glass tube, added a tiny bit of liquid mercury, ran an electrical current through it, and boom! It generated a tremendous amount of light with barely any heat. But there was a major catch. It lacked red light, which unfortunately made human skin look completely unnatural. It cast this eerie blue-green glow. Great for industrial photography or factories, sure, but you absolutely wouldn't want to light your dining room with it, unless you wanted your family looking like a bunch of blue-green zombies.
Which brings us to part 4. Germer's brilliant phosphor breakthrough, the missing ingredient.
Enter Edmund Germer in 1926. This German inventor finally discovers the missing ingredient to fix that terrible color rendering. You see, scientists knew Hewitt's mercury discharge was incredibly efficient, but most of that energy was raw, invisible ultraviolet light. Germer's absolute stroke of genius was coating the inside of the glass tube with a fluorescing powder, a phosphor. This phosphor acted kind of like a translator. It absorbed the invisible UV light and transformed it into a brilliant, usable, and totally flattering white light.
Let's actually break down how this ingenious light without heat mechanism works step by step, because it makes the dense physics super easy to digest. Step 1. You turn the lamp on, and electrons flow through the tube, colliding with mercury atoms. Step 2. These collisions energize the mercury atoms, making them emit invisible ultraviolet light. Step 3. That UV light hits the phosphor coating painted on the inside of the glass. And finally, Step 4. The phosphor fluoresces, emitting bright, visible white light. It is just a beautifully elegant two-step conversion of energy.
Section 5. The 1930s commercial revolution, the race to market.
Now that the foundational science is solved, things really kick into high gear as massive corporate R&D labs take over. It became this extremely urgent, tightly paced race by General Electric engineers to turn experimental concepts into a product that could change the world. In 1934, at GE's Nella Park, researchers led by William Enfield and George Inman created the first experimental tubular lamps. By 1935, they're showing off these brilliant green prototypes in closed-door meetings with the U.S. Navy.
In November 1936, they provided dazzling decorative lighting from a massive banquet celebrating the U.S. Patent Office's centennial down in Washington, D.C. And by April 1938, they were finally up for public sale, featuring specially tailored white and daylight phosphors.
That awe-inspiring public debut in D.C. elicited some seriously dramatic praise from the press. Check this out. The New York Times literally compared lamps that glow without heat to atomic energy and interplanetary rocket ships. I mean, wow. This editorial firmly and very publicly launched the era of fluorescent lighting, completely capturing the imagination of a country that was still climbing its way out of the Great Depression.
And the sheer scale of the commercial explosion that followed was unprecedented. The fluorescent lighting industry hit $100 million in sales in just 3 years. Just think about that number.
To put that into perspective, when you compare this explosive growth to other massive technological shifts of the era, the speed is staggering. The automobile industry, that took 15 years to hit the $100 million mark. The radio industry took 5. Fluorescent lamps, just 3 years. It's wild to see just how rapidly this technology spread like wildfire and transformed the country's infrastructure.
The adoption rate was simply astronomical. By 1939 alone, sales rocketed to 1.6 million lamps. And they weren't just selling like crazy, the tech was advancing month by month. By the end of 39, efficiencies had reached an unprecedented 50 lumens per watt. That was at least double the efficiency of comparable incandescent bulbs at the time.
All right, our final section. 6. A legacy of efficiency, transforming the world.
Now, like all tech, the fluorescent lamp came with a specific trade-off. The pros were undeniable: extremely high efficiency, long life, and relatively low operational cost. The cons? Well, it required a bulky transformer ballast to regulate the current, and despite Germer's phosphor breakthrough, the color rendition was still slightly deficient in reds compared to the warm, flattering glow of an incandescent bulb or natural sunlight. Because of this, it wasn't exactly perfect for cozy home mood lighting, but its unparalleled efficiency made it the absolute champion for factories, offices, and schools. Actually, when the U.S. entered World War II, this exact lighting was heavily relied upon to illuminate the factories working around the clock to support the war effort. However, this massive legacy is now coming to a close. Because of the toxic mercury required inside every single tube and the rise of even more efficient LED technology, fluorescent lamps are officially experiencing a modern global phase-out.
From Vincenzo Cascariolo's glowing rocks in the 1600s, to Hauksbee's static generators, to Geissler's vacuum tubes, right up to Hewitt and Germer's commercial breakthroughs, this explainer leaves us marveling at the cumulative nature of technology. Science is rarely a solo sprint, you know. It's a relay race across generations. And looking back at this legacy, it forces us to ask a really provocative question. If centuries of incremental discoveries lay the foundation for modern screens and neon cities, what incredible future technologies are we quietly building the groundwork for today? Keep that in mind the next time you flip a switch.